Hello chess friends and welcome to Out of Chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit decline studies. So in these studies we have seen some great openings and great defenses after the first moves d4, d5 and c4, and today we're continuing with our Queen's Gambit decline studies with the so-called Cambridge Springs defense. And the Cambridge Springs defense we have started recently. First of all, we have seen the most important strategic and tactical ideas of this opening, and today I wanted to show you this rook to c1 system that white can play. And this rook to c1 system is, I think, a quite tricky system that white will apply against your Cambridge Springs defense. And there is also a dirty, really one of the dirtiest traps that I've seen in my life that I think you can get in this Cambridge Springs defense. So that's why in this video I wanted to show you how to avoid this opening trap, but also how to play against this early rook to c1 system that you'll see many times from white's perspective against the Cambridge Springs defense. So let's see now what is the Cambridge Springs defense again, what is this rook to c1 system, and what is this dirty trap, and how to avoid this types of ideas. So the first move is of course the move d4. We have explained so far many strategic ideas in the Cambridge Springs defense, so please watch this mini series from the beginning, so part 1, part 2, part 3 and so on, because many of this idea will not explain in this particular video. In this video we'll do only this rook to c1 system. So now for instance after move c4 we can play of course the Slav defense. We have talked about the Cambridge Springs defense. You can get it out of the Queen's Gambit decline, you can get it out of the semi-Slav defense, you can get it out of many systems. So here knight to f3, knight to f6, knight to c3, 3 knights variation. Now we play the move e6, and after move bishop to g5, knight to d7 and e3. Now after move queen to a5, this becomes now our beautiful Cambridge Springs defense. And now comes the best line for white that we have explained. It's now the move c takes d5. Again, my recommendation, like in my previous analysis, was the move knight to d5. Don't take this pawn with the e pawn or with the c pawn. You could get many positional problems that we have also explained previously. So now we should, as I said, take out with the move knight takes d5. And now comes already quite a tricky move that I think could bother you, and it's this move rook to c1. Rook to c1 doesn't seem like a spectacular move, but I guarantee you this is such a dirty move. And you can say now, dude, what you're talking about, it's just a rook move, he's protecting his knight. But in the previous analysis we have seen this idea, queen to d2 followed with rook to c1. Now after the move rook to c1, what you could make, I think, as a strategic mistake is this particular line with the move h6. We're taking away the bishop with bishop to h4, and now you could play here this move bishop to b4. And you feel, I think, confident here because you're waiting this move to come. As we said, queen to d2 could happen, and now we're trying our system with the move b6 and bishop to a6 that we have also explained. That should be, I think, a decent setup here. But after a move bishop to b4, your opponent could prepare first of all a tactical trap, but then also a strategic trap. The tactical trap is actually here the move a3, and a3 is really hard to handle. I guarantee you'll not have fun if you play this particular line after move rook to c1. There are better methods. We'll see now how to really play against this rook to c1. But if you play too aggressively like this, then I think you could face really many positional problems. For instance, the first mistake that I've seen many times is this particular mistake, knight to c3. And it really makes sense that you play this move, but don't do this, because after move knight to c3, okay, you're attacking also the queen, but look what happens. After a takes b4, okay, you're taking the queen, okay, your opponent can also take the queen, and you think you can take even the pawn, you can escape with the knight. But this is now a bad position for black because of this particular line, and it's a wild line. King to d2. King to d2 is already threatening to even trap the knight here on the edge of the board. The knight has to escape, and now after move rook to c4, you have to protect your knight now with this idea, so like b5. But notice when you play b5, your pawn on c6 is hanging, and I think you have really bad game. You have to now even play the move a6 in order to protect your pawn on b5. And I think you can do now many things. Rook to c2 is, in my opinion, a nice choice, because because it's not allowing again the knight to get back into the game. Maybe later we can even trap the knight. All what you can do is the normal ideas, I think, also bishop to d3, bishop to e4 here from white's perspective, and bishop to g3. In some occasions the rook could be even trapped. After bishop to d3 you can also play rook from h to c1. So the attack that you get, the beautiful piece activity out of this wild line, is something that bothers black for sure. And believe me or not, the evaluation here is already +2 in white's favor. So this is a position I think you don't want to get. Notice this was all possible because you played too aggressively against this move rook to c1, and it's really a tricky line. For instance, after move a3, what you could make as a better move is this line, bishop to c3. After b6 c3, okay, you can grab the pawn, but I guarantee you again, this is not a good method anymore. This line we have seen previously in this beautiful stockfish game with the move queen to d2 and now e4. Let's see possible continuation. You can maybe try the move b5 that we have seen previously. Now after move bishop to d3, kingside castling, and I think in the near future with here kingside castling and maybe e4, e5, we have seen this methods. Rook to e1, after e4, e5, rook to e4, and rook to g4 was this method that Stockfish showed us. That was the video that we have covered previously before this one. So as I said, in my opinion, this idea, this whole system against this move rook to c1 is simply not working. Look at this. You can even take some pawns, but I think the activity that white gets is simply devastating for black. So even if we, as I said, play this line with knight takes c3, you saw that it's nothing spectacular. White has, I think, here already a winning position. So don't do this. There are better methods, and I think the best method that was introduced to us against this rook to c1 idea is a beautiful method introduced to us by Magnus Carlsen. It's a beautiful line, it's a liberating line, and I think it's again meeting with our previous ideas with this b6 systems that we have talked about. So again, I'm repeating myself, but please watch this series from the beginning. So in order to get a better understanding, I think every of this video should be watched combined, because it doesn't make sense we talk about some strategic concepts here and you don't know what we have covered previously. So it's really important to watch these videos combined. I've sorted them out. I think you could have really a decent preparation. So let's see now how really we should play against this early rook to c1 method, because it's a tricky line. We have to agree. I think it's something that I think bothered us and we could make many mistakes. So let's go again into our Cambridge Springs defense setup. Here I move bishop to g5, and it was a beautiful gameplay by Boris Gelfand against Magnus Carlsen. And look how Magnus is now playing the Cambridge Springs defense with the black pieces. He's playing now after move e3, the move queen to a5, perfectly fine. And now after c takes d5 and knight to d5, we have now again this move rook to c1. But now I recommend you, don't even bother with this move bishop to b4. Don't even bother with this move h6 previously. After move rook to c1, my recommendation here is simply to take out the knight. Knight takes c3, because of course rook to c3 is not working. Bishop to b4 hits the rook immediately, so that's why it's not working. So that's why white needs now to take with the pawn, but now we get an extra tempo. And I think getting a tempo here, it's much more important than getting material. Because we have said our main strategic goal is, in my previous analysis we have explained it, is the move b6 and then followed with bishop to a6. And again, this move bishop to a3 gives us an extra tempo. Here after rook to c2, we can play now b6 immediately, and now after bishop to d3 we have extra time to trade off the powerful bishop on d3 against our worst bishops. That's now the most important strategic concept here. We have talked about this, you remember probably in the previous analysis. So as I said, if you play these different ideas that we have talked about, if you play here even after b takes c3, bishop to a3, rook to c2, if you play here kingside castling even, I think you could have again some problems, because after bishop to d3 no one guarantees you that you will trade off your light square bishop after here the move b6 and bishop to a6. So in my opinion, there's simply one moment that you have to use in order to get rid of the light square bishops off the board. And that's, I think, very important here that Magnus Carlsen showed us. b6, now after bishop to a6, now he has a powerful play here after bishop to d3. I think the first mission accomplished. As I said, this is nothing spectacular. This is not a winning position immediately. We cannot say, oh, dude, we have this position, we're winning the game for sure. But I think it's a solid line. And you see now, okay, white has here a healthy pawn structure in the center of the board, but this pawn structure can be broken with ideas of c5, e5, and similar stuff. So here in the continuation, Magnus pulled off the beautiful kingside castling move. Now we have now the move e4, and now rook to e8. We have now e5. Here, Boris Gelfand creates some spaces, but notice there is now this small pawn chain on dark squares, c3, d4, e5, and we have the dark square bishops on the board. So it's not so good, I think, to have too many of your pawns on dark squares. If you have a dark square bishop, of course, it works the same if you have a light square bishop. Now, then, of course, you don't want to have many light square pawns. Now, Magnus simply kicks away the bishop, bishop to h4, and now he's breaking the position immediately with the move c5. This is the way to go. So we have here knight to d2, c takes d4, and after c takes d4, again, I think a new mission accomplished, because Magnus Carlsen with this tactical sequence provoked now a structural weakness, which is now, of course, the backward pawn on d4. And I think this is a solid game. From this point on, actually, black has even a slightly better evolution. From this point on, I think black is taking over in the position. So beautiful, beautiful play by Magnus. And this game that I'm showing you now, Gelfand versus Magnus Carlsen back from 2013, was a game in which Magnus Carlsen didn't play without didn't make any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. He has played here almost a perfect game. After move c takes d4, of course, Magnus is now competing on the c file. We have now this idea, knight to c4, queen to b5, hits, of course, now the bishop, because, of course, you cannot take knight takes a3, your queen is hanging. So in the continuation, rook to c7, we have now this idea. After a couple of trades of pieces, we have here now this one. Here, Boris Gelfand doesn't want to lose, of course, a d4 pawn, and now Magnus simply steps back and has now a solid game. I think this is a good position for black, especially because of the fact that we could use maybe this square for knight. It becomes now a knight versus bishop's endgame, in which when we cement the knight on d5, it will become really this octopus knight that cannot be kicked away by any minor pieces or other pieces of whites from the center of the board. It will be simply the best piece on the board. And I think, as I said, I would really love to play here more this game from black's perspective. So here, rook to c1, hitting the queen, queen to b7, queen to d6, and now knight to f8. Magnus simply escapes. We have now g3, rook to c8, forcing a trade of rooks. Now after move d5, e takes d5. Now Magnus occupies the f5 square. He's not allowing these two pawns to be connected, although he's weakening a little bit his dark squares, but it's really hard for white to open the dark squares because you have to push some pawns, and if you push the pawns, then you lose them. And of course, knight to e6 is going to happen again. Magnus is searching for outposts of the knight. He's searching for a good square for his for this knight on f8. So king to g2, now knight to e6, and this becomes again like in this Tetris game, a perfect piece that fits simply on the square e6. And as I said, it's beautiful, beautiful positional play by Magnus. So sorry, I just moved a little bit too far away. Sorry. So here, after move knight to e6, queen to f3 was played by Boris Gelfand. We have king to g7 by Magnus, a3. We have now the move h5, keeping. Again, I'm pointing out many of these pawns on light squares where they cannot be attacked, of course, by the dark square bishop. So h4, queen to c2, queen to b7, and now queen to a4. A beautiful move by Magnus. Attacks also the pawn, but also protects the pawn on a7. So queen to f3, b5 by Magnus. We have now f5. That was the only way for Boris Gelfand to open the position, but Magnus accepts the challenge. G takes f5, queen to f5. Magnus grabs now the pawn. Boris Gelfand also grabs now this pawn, but Magnus suddenly starts to push these pawns. He's simply forcing here a promotion. After a couple of checks, here Boris Gelfand had his fun with a couple of checks, but nothing spectacular. Magnus goes for this line, queen to d8, forces basically a trade of queens, but also protects here the pawn on a5. Here in the continuation, we have queen to d8, knight takes d8, and as I said, here Magnus Carlsen has two connected passers, and the game is simply over. So here, after knight to c4, beautiful move again by Magnus, you cannot take because of b2, and you couldn't, of course, catch up with the pawn. So here, after bishop to c3 was played by Gelfand. Now a3, g4. Look at this. It's nothing dramatic here because Magnus is holding this position. Now after move b2, king to c2, here knight to d2 was played by Magnus Carlsen, and in this position Boris Gelfand resigned. So the point is, if your opponent is going into this early rook to c1 lines, don't fall for this, don't mess it up, don't go into this bishop to b4 any more ideas. My recommendation: knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop to a3, get extra time, get extra tempi. Now after rook to c2, now again we're going into our b6 systems. We have seen in this beautiful game between Pragnananda and Ding Liren. Ding also played this b6 systems in a different move order, of course, but with the same strategic concepts. Now again bishop to a6, go for the trades of bishops, because if your bishop is stuck here on c8, although in this previous lines you gained some material, you gained some pawns, but it doesn't matter. Your bishop on c8 stays there forever. You will not be able to force further trades of bishops if you don't play this line. You will not have time to do this. So now after move bishop to a6, as we said, Magnus forces the trades of bishops. Now he played rook to e8, and now with the move c5, I think this is solid play. For instance, in this particular position, the engine gives here equal chances for both sides. So as I said, this is the way to go in this early rook to c1 systems. Please check it out. It's must-know theory. I think it's something that could give you many liberating lines. If you do something else, you'll see your problems. I guarantee you have position problems. So in my opinion, this is the way to go. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the analysis, and I hope that you enjoyed this beautiful Magnus Carlsen game against Boris Gelfand. Really beautiful positional play by the world champion Magnus. If you want to see more about the Cambridge Springs defense and also about some other Queen's Gambit decline studies, please check out our Queen's Gambit decline studies from the beginning. So we have explained many ideas like the Harvard's attack, Chigorin defense, Tarash defense, semi-Tarash, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.